You know, Moo, as exhausting, frustrating as demonstrating logical fallacies to the religious that want to argue with you, as frustrating and exhausting as that can be, it is useful. Because believe me, the people who are using those fallacious arguments didn't come up with them themselves. People in power, I would say, in various religious communities come up with those kind of arguments, then preach them, and then it's the people who will, come on YouTube or live video or something and then repeat what they've heard. And why do they do that? Well, obviously it sounds good to them, right? You're right. They are in that linear mindset. But it's natural for people to be in that linear mindset, to make the jump to strict logic, to mathematics. That's all learned behavior and doesn't develop on its own naturally. During normal brain development, it won't happen. That stuff needs to be taught to children during the period of time where they can build those neural connections so that they can continue to think in that manner. But left to their own devices without cultural pressures to become educated in those types of endeavors, that they'll never learn to think in that strict, rigid, logical, and mathematical way. The main motivating factor for coming up with rationalities, and they're all going to be fallacious, is desire for God, for the Judeo-Christian God, for the desire for Yahweh specifically is what we're dealing with in this in the West. And that's emotional reaction. You're not going to be able to logically argue with somebody who's arguing through emotion. That's just not how we're built. It takes a certain kind of person to be as objective as you need to be a mathematician or a scientist. A majority of people, I don't think, have it in them to be that objective. Everything is subjective to them. I probably told you this. I told a couple other people that I got into an argument with somebody who thought that the sun rising tomorrow has a 50-50 chance of happening. This is not the type of person that you can have a logical argument with. The whole idea of probability was just beyond him. Actually, I don't think I have anything more constructive to say, but I just wanted to say that, it's probably not their fault that they can't think in a rigid, logical manner, because it's our nature to react emotionally to stuff. So, if they want to believe in a God, then they will make stuff up that sounds good, that sounds convincing, to not only convince themselves, but in an effort to try to convince somebody like yourself or myself, which won't work. They're still making a show for their peer group, their social group, which they got the argument from in the first place. It is a bit tiring, especially when you can remove yourself from the middle of it and see what's going on, see all the interactions, trace the lie back up the chain. It can be a bit frustrating, but it's not useless. Because at every corner we need to point out the logical fallacies, because every time you do that, you're making the person doubt their source. Even if only for a fraction of a second. That adds up over time. That's how I lost Judaism, because I realized that the concept of Yahweh, the Creator God that I had in my head, was not, as much as I would have liked to think that it was not independent from the text in which He's created. If the Torah, from Genesis all the way through the 5 books, if there's anything incorrect, wrong, contradictory about the book, the whole thing falls apart. As soon as the whole thing falls apart, every single concept within it is highly suspect of being incorrect, especially the most important concept, which is of the monotheistic God. If that concept is not independent from a fallacious source, then, what other outside evidence do we have for it? If there isn't any good outside evidence, then the notion needs to be disregarded as being outlandish. So, if it helped me get through to become deconverted, as it will, then it can help others break the trust that they have for their preachers, who are either just mistaken or purposefully lying to them, which is what I suspect. As soon as you break that line of trust, then they're going to have to learn to trust something that is, rigid and actually true, like logic and like mathematics. Like the scientific method, which seems to work to figure out what's really going on in the universe. So that's all I have to say. So, as frustrating as it can be, it's not useless. Keep it up. As tiring as it can, you just drink some coffee and go at it again. It's worth it in the end, trust me.